So welcome, Rebecca. It is lovely to have you on the show. Thank you for joining. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for asking me to come along.
No, it's a pleasure. I've been thinking about it for a while. So I guess so we can just start it off. Can you explain to everyone who you are, what you do, those sorts of things?
Yeah, so I'm Rebecca. I work for myself. I've got a company called Harland House. My original training is in textile design, which was kind of always more interior side of textiles rather than fashion. And then kind of via various jobs, I sort of ended up working for kind of fabric companies, then a company where we did investment properties and show homes in London. So I've kind of gradually progressed through to more interior stuff. I did some retraining. I retrained and did an interior design qualification. And then we moved up here and I started working for myself. So yeah, and I've kind of
Okay.
worked on quite a selection of projects over the years.
So
And
tell us
yeah,
how long have you been an interior designer for?
so I would say about 15 years now.
Okay.
Like actually working for myself. And before that, I kind of did do interiors, but yeah, for
Yep.
myself, about
All
15
right.
years. Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about some of the projects that you work on.
Well, they're quite varied, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm mainly residential, and they really vary. Some of them are quite big, so I've been involved in extension projects where I'm involved right from the beginning with an architect or someone, and we'll do a lot of kind of the initial planning, like things like where the electrics are going to go.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, I've worked with most rooms in houses. I mean, kitchens and bathrooms. Obviously, I've worked with you with your kitchen. Usually alongside someone who's like a proper kitchen designer because they tend to, they've got the specialist tools. And then, lots of more decoration projects. So, it might be a bit of layout work, furniture, colours, window treatment. So yeah, kind of a big variety
A
really.
big
And
variety. Okay, so
yeah,
let's sort of focus it a little bit on the kitchen.
yeah,
Um, in the sense that that is my bag. We did a show a couple of episodes back whereby we spoke about how the kitchen can be a frustrating but also a loved area of the house. We spend a lot of time in the
we
kitchen
do.
as
Yeah, yeah.
meal providers. So when you think about working within sort of the kitchens of people's houses, what do you like most about that sort of space in the house?
Well, it tends to be the space that people spend a lot of their time in. Whether they're a couple, whether they've got children, families. It's where people gravitate to. So it's a room that you need to get right.
Mm.
And I think you can make mistakes. So it is a room to get right.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I did before I did the previous episode was I asked people in Let's Thermomix, so some of my
Yeah,
listeners, what they like and don't like about their
yeah.
kitchen. And I think it's quite interesting. Similar things came out.
Hmm.
But what would you say are some of the mistakes that people can have
Yeah.
in their
I mean,
kitchens?
everybody says they want more space in a kitchen. I mean, that is one of the things that everyone will say, but it's not necessarily about having more space. It's about how you use it. So, if you've got insufficiently badly planned storage and space, that's just not going to work. Whereas if you've
Hmm.
got a small space, but it's planned really well, things are going to flow and things are going to be easier to use. So like a poor kitchen triangle will have you kind of running around all over the place.
So
Um, you
you've
know,
said something there that I'm just going to stop you at. What's a kitchen triangle?
So kitchen triangle is the three main kind of elements. So it's the sink, the cooker, and the fridge. So they're the things that you're using all the time. So you need to make sure that, I mean, it's not always possible, but you need to make sure they're ideally in a triangle, so that you're not kind of going, right round the corner to the fridge, then back again, and it just saves you time and it just makes things easier.
Okay.
But I mean, in terms of the other mistakes people make, I mean, I would say lighting is another one as well. I mean, poor lighting in a kitchen is a problem. I mean, people put in rows and rows of spotlights, but then they've got no light in front of them where they're actually doing the work. So that's really, really an important thing to get right. Ventilation in the kitchen is quite important, obviously,
Hmm.
um, just to get rid of
You're
those
saying
smells and things like that.
you're saying that to the woman who didn't
Yes, I
put
know.
the
Yes,
extractor
I
fan
know.
in her kitchen, much to her mother's
Yeah.
disgust.
Yeah, but
Okay, so
that's because it's what that works for how you cook, for what you use.
mm,
That wouldn't work for anyone. So it's a very personal thing. But yeah,
yeah, it's
um,
funny. All right. So we've got that kitchen triangle that we want to try and make work for us.
Mm-hmm.
Lighting, I think, is a really interesting one because I would say naturally my kitchen is a dark space.
Yeah, yeah.
So what kind of guidance could you give on lighting to make it a better space?
So lighting, I mean, obviously you need good overall background light. But what you want to make sure you're not doing is having dark corners in the space. And you want to also make sure that the light when you're prepping, so if you're cutting up vegetables and you're cutting up meat and that you've got light in front of you. Because if you think when you're standing at your worktop, you've got your back generally to the lights because the lights tend to be in the middle of the room. So you're creating a shadow. So you want to try and put some wall lights in front of you or under shelf lights or something that will basically illuminate what you're doing. Mm-hmm. One of the bugbears in my kitchen is that I've got some spotlights that I can put in different directions. But however I organise them, I always get a little bit of a dark space. But nowadays you've got rechargeable LED lights. You've got lights that you can that you don't have to have channeled in, so you can add lights to kind of help that out. But yeah, that's
actually
definitely...
It's a really good point, isn't it? Because you can get so much lighting is more accessible, like you say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
I think one of the other things I would say, thinking about back to what my kitchen was like, it sort of relates to what you're saying, but not really. My kitchen was dark naturally, and it was black.
Choice
color.
of materials. Yeah, choice of materials are important. I mean, particularly if you haven't got a big kitchen, it's dark colours are quite current at the moment, but if you've got a tiny little kitchen, making everything dark, it's not going to make it probably the most sort of open, inviting space. So you kind of need to think about your colours. You need to think about the materials you're using.
In what way?
Like, a gloss kitchen unit will reflect the light. A kind of concrete effect one will kind of absorb the light more. So you've got to think about the materials you're using as well, and that's a key thing to consider.
So materials, but also color as well, I would say is important. Is that not? Would that be true?
It is. Yeah, I mean, I think color obviously is such a personal choice, but if you're keeping it light in a small space, you're always going to make it look a bit bigger. I'm not saying do everything white. I mean, I think that just creates a little bit of a soulless box, but lighter colours will always bounce the light around quite well. So, I mean, if you've got a huge open plan kitchen, dark colours are great. Dark units are good. But if you're working with a small space, definitely try and keep it a bit lighter.
You got me to put this blue colour in my kitchen, and it was something I would never have considered. So talk to me about how colour in different ways impacts on what the kitchen space feels like.
Well, colour's important. I mean, it's it can really create a different mood. Different colours, blues quite relaxing, greens quite relaxing. I think sometimes people forget about the kind of kitchen as somewhere where they can put colour, and they just end up having everything neutral, which doesn't give it any life or personality. So, I mean, for you, I think we took that blue because you'd got that beautiful picture that we took the blue elements from. So that kind of linked it. And I think we put a little bit of blue in your blind fabric.
Yep.
So it's just linking it together and kind of, as I say, colour's such a personal choice. I mean, someone might want a red kitchen, but if you can link it with other things and
I think one of the things that you did was I remember you mentioning let's go blue, and I was like, what, just on one wall? And you were like, no, all over. And I was like, oh my God. But it actually just lifts the space.
Yeah.
So
it makes it quite cohesive as well. I mean, I know, doing a feature wall is it's still a thing, but the trouble with kitchens is you've usually got quite a lot of things going on. You've got wall cabinets, you've got storage cabinets, you've got doors, you've got tall fridges. So sometimes if you just paint one wall, it can just look a little bit bitty.
Ah, okay.
You kind of, whereas if you've done the whole lot, because it's not so much like a living room where you may have one full wall. A dining room, a kitchen diner tends to be a bit more broken up. So, the colour the whole way around can work quite well.
Yeah, that actually
you've often got splashbacks and things like that, which add a different element. So
I hadn't thought of it like that. Like it just is the most cohesive part of the room, isn't it? So it's like definitely a streamlined sort of scenario. You've again referenced storage. Talk to me about storage. I don't generally good, bad. those sorts
So
of things?
storage, I mean, I always think in a kitchen, drawers are so much more useful than cupboards. You know, if you're starting from scratch, put in as many big, deep drawers as you can, because you pull a drawer out, you can see everything in the drawer. You open a cupboard out, you're having to fight through things to get to the back. So drawers are really, really, a good thing if you're starting from scratch. If you're not and you've got drawers, organize them. You can buy drawer organizers so that it's not just all in a big mess in the bottom and the same with anything in your kitchen. I mean, try and organize and keep things in a sensible place, like, cleaning stuff under your sink, obviously, but tea and coffee near the kettle so that you're not backwards in and forwards in. Things that you're cooking with, oils, spices near the hob. Just try and group things as well, just to make things a little bit more organised.
So you've talked about drawers. What other types of storage would you recommend?
Well, I mean, obviously you've got cupboards, which are fine. They're good. I mean, a corner cupboards can be a bit of a problem. I seem to remember in yours we were kind of like, what we're going to do with the cook, because you just put stuff at the back and you don't use it. So, I mean, there are fancy pull-out things, but you tend to lose space with them because they're kind of in the way that they fold back. You're kind of sacrificing some space. So I always say with a corner cupboard, if you've got to have it, use that for the things that you don't use very often. The things like the big platter you might get out once at Christmas, put that in there so you're not trying to fight and get that out every day. I mean, think about in the kitchen for storage. You can put hooks on the side of cupboards. You can put, if you cook a lot and you use a lot of knives, a magnetic knife rack by your hobby is a good thing so you can grab things. Movable storage can be quite good. If you've not got the biggest kitchen, but perhaps you've got a utility room where you can store something. A movable, like almost like a butcher's block on wheels, can be really good. It can give you that extra space that you might need, if you're cooking for more people.
You've made me think of two things. Like, I always want more surface space.
Yeah, that was my next thing that I was going to say.
However, whenever I get more, I put more on it.
You put stuff on it, yeah.
So talk to me about
we all
space.
Do that, yeah. We all do that. I mean, I think with any kitchen, there's a fine line between creating space, making sure your surfaces are clear, because if they are clear, you'll feel more clear in your head and where things are. I think that's a good thing. However, I don't think a kitchen where you walk in and there's nothing out feels very inviting. That's me personally, but I think there's a fine line between having stuff out and making sure you've got that nice space. But certainly, I mean, if you're planning a kitchen from the beginning, think about where you're putting things like the hob, so that you've got space each side for putting. It's okay having space to kind of cut everything up, but then where are you going to plate up your food? Make sure you've got space to put your dirty dishes before they go in the dishwasher or they get washed up. Small things like that. And then obviously a clear space that you can use for doing baking, or, like for you when you're demonstrating, can be really important. So,
yeah, definitely. And then the other thing you introduced to me was the pull-out pantry.
Yes, they're good because they don't take up much space width-wise. They can be quite narrow, but you can see everything because it pulls out and it's that way rather than going backwards. You can go either side of it. You can find things. Yeah, they're great. I mean, I think if you've got those and big deep pan drawers are really, really key to make a kitchen user friendly and easy. It's quite easy to clean as well because there's not solid shelves. They clean. What's cleaning?
What's that mean?
You can just get but yeah, I mean they've usually got racks rather than shelves, so they're quite light and open. They're easy to use. Yeah.
The other thing you introduced to me was my pull-out spice drawer.
Yeah. Well, that was a little unused space, wasn't it? You didn't have anything. I think, was there a wine rack that not a fridge? Not a fridge. Wine fridge. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, most people would really like a wine fridge. but yeah, you had it was a funny little space, wasn't it? And sometimes you do end up with a little, the best plans in the world. Sometimes a kitchen you do end up with a funny little space. So there are various. You can do a pull-out spice rack, you can have space to put like nice trays and things like that. I mean, just maximize any little space, really.
Yeah. But I think the other thing that I absolutely love about my kitchen since you helped me redesign it was the bin, the pull-out bin. I can't
Yeah,
believe I'm that sad
yeah.
to be so excited about a pull-out bin, because I think bins are a bane, a big
Yeah,
pain
I
in the
mean, you really
backside.
want to keep your floor clear if you can, because obviously you've got so much traffic moving around in a kitchen. So, if you, and particularly in the days now where we've got so much recycling as well, so you can end up with like 2 or 3 bins for different things. So if you've got the space and you can put them under your sink, um, then it's getting them off the floor. When you've done all your cuttings, you can open it out and just knock it straight into it rather than having to like scoop it up and carry it across the other side of the kitchen.
Ideal world. We've got no constraints. You've got a space. What would be your top 5 tips to someone to make the best of a kitchen space?
So I think the first thing that you need to do is you need to think about how you're going to use it. Everybody's different. Everybody has, some people don't cook, so for them the kitchen is, they just make a cup of tea and keep stuff in the fridge. But if you cook a lot, if you entertain a lot, if you've got a younger family where you want to be able to keep an eye on them, and you've got the space to make it a multifunctional space, you need to think about what you need to achieve from your kitchen. So be that a big kitchen, a big cooking area, be it kind of a big breakfast bar area for people to sit at. I think they're the fundamentals that you need to think about at the beginning. Structurally, you might, if you've got the ability to make some changes, you need to think about that at the beginning so that, you're getting all of those big things done. I mean, you blocked up a door in your kitchen, didn't you? Because it was just, you didn't use it. It was just taking up space. So, yeah, I think if you've got the ability to change things, make sure you think about that from the beginning.
Okay.
So other things to think about, making sure you've got adequate space. I mean, I've been into houses where people have put in a huge island, which is fantastic, but they've not thought about when people are sitting around it, that people need to walk around. There's a dishwasher behind it, that's got to be opened. So think about the flow of footfall around the space and make sure you've got adequate space to do what you want to do. I think about the surfaces you use. I mean, gloss kitchens, as we talked about, great. They reflect the light around a lot. They can show fingerprints. So, if you've got maybe really small little toddler children that are going to be walking around with, chocolatey fingers, perhaps they're not the best thing to go for. Having said that, matte kitchens, very flat matte, can be a bit of a nightmare as well. So, think about that. Definitely think about the work surface you use. I mean, I love wood worktops, but they're not the most practical if you're not good at, wiping up water and kind of keeping on top of them. So think about things like that. If you're a family where you're kind of, you're cook and go and stuff might get left spilt on there, have something a bit more practical like a compact laminate or something that's going to be a little bit more hardy. So think about your materials, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. And would there be anything else generically that you think?
Well, I suppose colours is probably the last thing. There are fads, dark green kitchens, dark blue kitchens, but think about whether in 5-10 years time you're still going to be happy with that, because a kitchen is a big investment from you. So you want to make sure that what you choose you're going to be happy with. And the same, I mean, paint can be changed, can't it? I mean, we can repaint quite quickly, but getting those fundamental things, the big things right at the beginning color wise is quite important.
I think for me, going back to, the color that was introduced into my kitchen, I would say for me that was incredibly brave, because I had no clue. I just feared it was going to be so overbearing. But like you said, you picked the color from a painting which used to be there, needs to be put back up. The blinds I absolutely love. They've got gold and blue and bronze, and it, like you say, it just brings everything
together. It all together. I mean, that's the finishing touches. But I mean, you chose like a really nice soft grey for your units, which you could use that. You could put any colour with that. You know, it's a basic. You know, your worktops were a light white because obviously you were worried about it being dark. So you chose things that you can, you know, if you take away that picture, you can repaint your walls. You know, you can paint them green, you could paint them yellow. So I think the key thing is to get those big things right.
Yeah, definitely.
Having said that, though, I mean, obviously we kept your carcasses and we just changed the doors. So there are things that you can do. You know, if you're not in the luxury of the position of completely changing your kitchen, there's lots of things that you can do to kind of make it look different and make it work better without ripping the whole thing out.
I'd forgotten that actually, that we did use the carcasses. So are there any other little tips that you could suggest?
Well, the same with worktops. I mean, we changed your worktops, we changed your doors, we changed the layout just slightly in that we swapped a couple of units, didn't we, just to make it flow better for you. Obviously, we took away that huge cooker hood that you had, which, you know, you've got a lovely open plan space where you can sit the other side, but it just overwhelmed the space, didn't it?
And it was so low.
It was very, yeah. I mean, I'm tall, you know, and cooker hoods are a bane in our house, banging our heads, but it was very low and it was big. So, and, you know, now you've got your light, which is nice. It's a feature. It kind of links the space more, because before that cooker hood really kind of divided the space up, didn't it? In not a good way. So,
no.
And perhaps a slightly poor choice of material. I mean, it was a really heavy stainless steel one, wasn't it? I mean, there's so many different ones now. I mean, obviously you've got the downdraft ones, you've got ones that pop up. You know, now it would be a lot easier to have the hob in your island, because you can do other things, but the way it was set up didn't work for you. So
no. It was rubbish.
But you can make changes quite easily with kitchens.
So I'm going to just pull you back because you mentioned your kitchen.
Yeah.
So in an ideal world, like, what would you change? What sort of issues do you find you've got with your kitchen?
So my kitchen, I would like a bit more storage. So I'm open plan. I've got open plan kitchen, dining room with a little sofa, and we're in there all the time. You know, we've got nice bifold doors, we face the south, it's beautiful, we're in there all the time. So I didn't put any wall cabinets in because I didn't want to close the space down at the sides. So I suppose I'm a little bit lacking in cabinets. I've got a couple of corner units which I did have swing outs. I've taken them out now. I've just put a shelf in there and I just keep stuff that I don't use that much in them. I've only got a slimline dishwasher, which I'd like a wider one. But
yes.
Yeah.
How do you cope?
Yeah. There's only 3 of us, so it's not too bad. But
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But
I mean, in terms of, I mean, my kitchen went in 14 years ago. I chose quite a sort of a soft, sagey, greeny kind of virgin on grey, but it's really timeless colour. I've got shaker units. It's a timeless colour. Like at the moment, my walls are like a darker sage green, but I'm going to change to a terracotta. I've got oak worktops. It's quite timeless. It's one that I can update. I've got units which I could paint if I wanted to. So yeah, I mean, other than a little bit of storage things, then I quite like my kitchen.
You've said something really interesting, because I would not know if I've got a timeless kitchen. What do you mean?
So so you've got shaker units. You've got.
What does that mean? What is that?
So a shaker is like a slab kitchen is one where you've just got a smooth flat door with usually no handles. It's just very, very minimalist. Shaker is where you've got the little bit of detailing around the edge, so it's kind of like in a block around the edge. And shaker is timeless because you can make that look really, really quite modern. You can make it look really quite traditional. I mean, you've got that quite slimline compact laminate worktop, which makes it look quite contemporary. But you could put, with a shaker kitchen, you could put oak worktops with it. You can do much more traditional handles. It's a kitchen that can work either way.
Okay. What else makes a kitchen timeless? I think that's a really interesting point.
I'd say probably your tile choice. I mean, obviously there's a lot of glass splashbacks which are quite modern. I mean, they're great, they're easy to clean. But I guess something more timeless would perhaps be, like a metro style tile.
I think it's really interesting because I think, you know, people don't necessarily think long term. And I think that's what you're saying in a way, that it's
Yeah,
about how you use it, but not making, I don't know, timeless is a really good word. I would not have the kitchen I have if I'd done it myself. I hate to think there would have been no color at all. And I absolutely love it because I'd walk in and I just feel so much better about being
yeah,
in this space. So I
yeah.
think it's, I'm
And
glad
that's at the end of the day, that's what everyone wants from their home, to walk in and feel like they're at home and like they're comfortable there.
mm,
And that's
there's,
what I always say to people when I'm working with them. It's got to work for you. There's no point in looking at, a kitchen magazine or a home magazine and looking at what other people have done, because it has to work for you.
there's one thing I wish I'd done.
Okay,
Got,
what's that?
got a cooker tap.
Oh yes, yeah.
I'm like, but I
The
don't have
only
a
trouble with
kettle.
those is they do, I mean, they're fabulous, but they do take up, you do need space underneath your cupboard.
Mm,
So, that would have been a sacrifice. You maybe wouldn't have had your bins under there, because they do,
yeah.
depending on the variety you have and how all singing and dancing it is, but they do need a bit more space under the sink. So,
Yeah.
that's something that's a compromise, isn't it? You think about what's more important to you.
Yeah. Okay. And what I was just about to say though was I don't have a kettle anymore. So I'm going to move on to the next bit because you obviously know me as a Thermomix advisor.
Yes.
So that is my kettle now.
Is it?
Yeah. So I got rid of the kettle. I don't have a microwave anymore or anything
Yeah.
like that. And I
Yeah.
guess it's always going to come back to this point. I always ask all of my guests a little question about the Thermomix. You don't have one.
No, not at the
Which is
moment. I know
which
you've.
is
Yeah.
which is fine. I'm just intrigued when you think about it because not everyone knows what it is. How would you describe it to somebody?
Uh, well, I think from what I've seen of when you've demonstrated, it's a kind of an all-in-one appliance that you can use. You can it preps things.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding, it gives you
Mm-hmm.
instructions.
Mm-hmm.
It can take the place of quite a few other appliances, which is a good thing because, as I say, freeing up that space.
Mm.
I think it's quite a healthy way of eating generally.
Yeah, I mean it can be because pretty much you're making everything from
From
scratch.
scratch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
you can do without, but I can make a mayonnaise in it in under
Yeah.
2 minutes, and I can make ketchup in it, but then I can
Can
make
you
a
do
curry.
hollandaise? Because that's the
Yeah,
one thing that I say.
yeah, and a sauce without stirring.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you will be pushed to find anything it can't make. And I guess in that sort of vein about around food, and we've been talking about the kitchen. Who does the cooking in your house? How does that happen?
So it's a bit of a split in our house. So there's a couple of nights a week that I'm back later. My husband's kind of broadly working at home, so he's quite often at home. So he will cook. And then there's some days when I cook. So it's a bit of a split in our house, actually.
You're lucky.
Um, yeah, I mean, we kind of, I think what we're not so good at is planning. We don't
Mm-hmm.
menu plan and kind of work out what we're going to have each night. Each week I think, well, I need to do that. And I can see how it would really, really help us, but I just never seem to get around to doing that. But yeah, we kind of, we split it
Mm-hmm.
generally.
And what kinds of things do you eat?
Well, we're quite big for cooking from scratch. I mean, we try to be as healthy as we can. Try not to buy a lot of processed food. So we do cook a lot from scratch. I mean, a lot of the time it's simple things like, chicken thighs in the oven with some
Mm-hmm.
veg, maybe some potato or some grains or something. Bolognese is always a big favourite. I mean, I like batch cooking, so I'll make a big bolognese at the weekend, big stew or something like that then you can kind of portion up and get out when you're in a rush.
Mm-hmm.
We quite like sausages in our house. We have an air fryer and they're quite good, quite good in there. Yeah, and then sometimes, I mean, I really like cooking. It is a lot of the time. It's time. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's not having that kind of 45 minutes to an hour to kind of to think about it and prep it all. And
No one has that. Let's
No,
be fair,
no.
you know,
And we do
and I
we do
think,
occasionally have a pizza from the...
yep,
But one thing I do want to do is learn how to make my own pizza base. Do you make pizza base in your
I
thermomix?
do.
Ah, okay.
It needs it in about 2 minutes.
Really?
And yes, so I think you need to get me round just so you can see it, you
Yeah.
know. Okay, so final question. You can prepare your most favorite thing. There's no time constraints, there's no budget constraints. It's your time to make dinner. What would be your
Oh,
meal
what
of
would I
choice?
make? I would probably choose something like a beef Wellington because I think that's a real luxury. Like, yeah, it's an expensive dish and it takes some time, but it's a nice, beautiful dish. So
Would
something
all
like that with some nice vegetables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would all three of you eat that?
Yes. Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on today, Rebecca. It's been brilliant. You've shared some really good tips about, I think, that anyone could put into practice, even if they can't have a brand new kitchen from scratch. And finally, just let everyone know where they can get your details from, those sorts of things.
So the best place to find me is maybe on Facebook. So you can find me Rebecca Driver. At the moment, I'm rebranding, so my actual work page is going to be rebranded. So yeah, find me on Facebook, Rebecca Driver,
Okay.
and yeah, I can maybe help a few more people with kitchens.
Brilliant.